Hello and welcome to episode 42 of the She.Must.Knit podcast. My name is Erin and thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. I hope you guys had a great week. I had a surprisingly productive week considering it was a short school week for Avery and she was home on Monday. We had an appointment so we were driving around for that. Didn't get any work done then. So I just had Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Today's Friday. It's a PA day. She's home with me today. So yeah, I don't expect to get a whole bunch of work done today. She does have a party later, so I might be able to squeeze a little bit in. But despite all that, I feel like I got a lot done. So what do I have for you today? I have basically a whole bunch of progress on some of the projects that I've shared with you over the past few weeks. Plus, I have a project that I've dug out from the depths of my unfinished objects pile, and I've started working on that again. That was one of my mini goals for this month, was to get a little bit of work done on this project, and I did. I dug it out, and I've been working on it. So I'm going to start with a quick sip of my coffee. I've got coffee today, and look, it's in a new mug. I know. What is the world coming to? I am not using my friend's mug, but I got this mug as part of my swap package from Felicia, and it is just a delightful size for coffee. So I've been using this mug during the day for my coffee, and then I've been using my friend's mug in the evening for tea. And yeah, so I've got, what do I have? French toast today. And it is quite tasty. It's one of my coffees from the Bones Coffee Company. I really like them for flavored coffee. I have mentioned before, they have regular coffee too. But I just really enjoy their flavors, and I find them to be where they taste like what they're supposed to taste like. So I just finished this one off. I still have a whole bunch more from them. I've been itching to place another order because they've had some new flavors come out, but I'm going to be good. We're going to talk about this a bit later. I'm going to wait till I get through some more of my flavors. So that's what I have to drink today. And then before I get started with my projects, Avery's back. Avery's back. She has finished something that she wanted to show you, and then she has started a new project. And so she wanted to talk a little bit about that. So here she is.
My name is Avery, and I finished a project. And Mommy, it's a sleeping bag, and Mommy put a stuffing in here. Here's a LO. She does not have a top on. And this is the yarn that I made, fused it with. I did a long strip, and then Mommy folded it into a sleeping bag. See? It's stuck in there, and I finished. I'm starting a new project. I still don't know what the name is, but here's my new project. His sparkles in it. And here's the rest of the yarn in here. So I think that is the end of mine. So bye. Move on to Mommy's.
We're back. I hope you enjoyed that. She has been working really hard on her projects. She doesn't knit all the time, but considering she went from basically having absolutely no interest to actually, she will ask me, can we sit and knit, Mommy? I think that's a pretty good improvement. I think part of it is that we found a project that she's interested in, so the little sleeping bags for her LOL dolls, and also it's a project that really doesn't take a long time to make. It's basically just a little strip that I then will fold up and sew up the edges and stuff the pillow a little bit. It really doesn't take that long to make them, so she feels a sense of accomplishment. And so as soon as she's finished one, she wanted to get another one started because she wants all her LOLs to have one of these sleeping bags. And after her birthday and after Christmas, she has a lot of dolls. So that's going really well. We'll see how long that lasts. But yeah, let's get started on my projects. So the first things I'm going to show you are the progress I've been making on the 2 pairs of socks that I am currently working on. One is my Desert Vista Dyeworks challenge pair, and then the other is a pair for my husband, because that is also one of my goals this year, is to make more socks for my husband. He only has like 3 or 4 pairs, and that's just not enough. So for both of the pairs, sorry, I just noticed that Mr. T is right there. I don't know what he's doing. He has been in a mood today, so he might get into trouble while I'm recording this. We'll just have to see. But he is right there making his presence known, staring at me. So yeah, so these are the two socks that I've been working on. So my Desert Vista Dyeworks pair and the pair for my husband. And I have finished the first sock of both these pairs. So I'm going to start with the Desert Vista Dyeworks pair. This is the color Second Helping, and I think it was just after the middle of the month, maybe the 16th, I finished this. Usually I try and finish the first sock around the middle of the month so that I know I have lots of time to get that second sock done. So I think I finished this just after the middle of the month. I know there's been a lot of new subscribers lately, so I'm just going to go into some of the details of how I do my vanilla sock. If you want something a little bit more in depth and maybe some other details that I might not add here, episode 23, I go into a lot about how I make my vanilla socks. But basically, I prefer to do toe-up socks. I start with Judy's Magic Cast On, and I do 36 stitches because I like a wider toe. And then I increase to 70 stitches if I'm working on your standard fingering weight yarn. So I find her yarn to be, you know, your 75-25 blend is a little bit thinner. So I will increase to 70 stitches. And because I started with 36, I have a very shallow toe. I think my increases stop about there. And then I just knit straight up. And lately I have been really enjoying the German short row heel. So for my foot, and I'm about an 8.5, 9 women's, I have found that working the foot to about 7.5 inches is working for me. I used to do 7 inches, and that's when I found that after washing and wearing, the heel would kind of slip under my foot. So the last pair I did 7.5 inches for the foot, and they are wearing much better. So I do 7.5 for the foot, and then I pop my heel in. Now, usually, if I had this amount of stripes in a pattern, I would just continue with the heel from my working yarn, and even if that would disrupt the striping pattern. If there's only a few different colors, or in this case, because I'm making these for a friend, I did something differently so that the stripe pattern would not be disrupted. So what I did with these is once I got up to the point of putting in the heel, I dropped my working yarn. I slipped the stitches on my needle around to the other tip so that I'd be in the position to work the back of the heel. And I took yarn from the other side of the cake. So for example, I usually work from my cake from the inside. So once I got to the heel, I kind of flipped my cake around, took the yarn from the outside of the cake, and I started working the heel from this end. That way, I was able to put in the heel, and then once I was done the heel and rejoined with my working yarn, I didn't have to cut that. I just had to cut the heel yarn. Once I rejoined, the striping remained intact, and I only had 2 ends to weave in versus 4. So if I had cut my working yarn and then if I had done the heel, another way you can do this is to just do the heel with the working yarn, and then when you join around, take out some of the yarn to get back to where you were, but then you still have to cut it, so you still have 4 ends. So this way you only have 2 ends. So I did that so that the striping remained intact, the heel was in place, and then what I always do with my socks is when I'm joining back in the round, because there's a tendency to have little gaps like right there when you're joining in, I always pick up 3 to 4 stitches along between the 2 needles to kind of close in that gap. And so I do that. Now, if you like a tighter leg, you can decrease those stitches as you work up the leg. I personally have a wider calf, and I like it to be a more comfortable fit. So usually I just leave those stitches in, and they just make my a leg a little wider and a little more comfortable. So because my friend has a similar shape to me, I left those stitches in, I worked up the leg, and then I usually will add another 1 or 2 stitches up around the cuff to make sure that the cuff is not too tight either. And I like to do a nice long cuff, and then I do Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. So that is what I did for this sock. And then in a similar way, oh, and I should mention I use 2mm Chiagu mini twist needles. Those are my favorite sock needles. So 2mm if I'm using a standard sock weight yarn. And then my husband's, I finished his first sock too. So same kind of thing that I did, toe up. I kept the working yarn going like just standing, and I worked from the other. In this case, because I'm using two 50-gram balls, I'm using the Patons Croy sock yarn. Instead of working from the other side of the cake, I just worked from the other ball to do the heel, and then I kept going. Because again, because these stripes, there's only like 3 main colors and they're quite wide, if I had just continued on with my working yarn to do the heel, there would have been a very, very obvious jump in the pattern, and I didn't want that. So I worked from the other ball for the heel, and then I just kept on going. Because Patons Croy is a slightly thicker yarn, I'm knitting these on 2.5 Chabu mini twist needles, and I started with, I think I started with the same amount, Judy's Magic Cast On 36 stitches, but then I only increased to about 64 stitches. But yeah, so I've got the first sock done. And then for both pairs, I very rarely suffer from second sock syndrome. I don't think I have any languishing socks in my collection, and I very rarely do. And that's mainly because as soon as I finish the first sock, I always cast on the next one. So I've got the start, I've got the little wee toe started for my Desert Vista Dyeworks socks, and I've got the toe started for my husband's socks. And I was actually able to bring these to skating last night, and so I got a little bit more than just the toe done on these. And that way I find they are just ready to go, because I find if I don't cast the toe on right away, I'll be in a situation where I'll be going somewhere and there'll be an opportunity to just like knit, like at one of Avery's classes or something like that, and I'll be like, oh, I should grab some knitting, and it's like, oh, but I don't have anything started, or I don't have that toe started. And there's just something about starting the toe out and about, like, it's just much more, it's just easier to already have something going that you can just knit on. And so I tend not to bring them, and then they don't get started, and then it takes longer and longer and longer. Whereas as soon as I finish the first sock, if I just even just get the toe cast on and started, then it's already ready for me when I'm going out and about to grab and work on. So that's what I find works for me, and that way I find I don't have a big gap in finishing the second sock compared to the first sock. So that's the progress on my socks. And then the next project that I have been working on, and I got a pretty good amount done on, is Avery's sweater. So this is the sweater that I am making for her out of my own handspun, and I'm making it from this book here, 60 Quick Knits for Kids, and it is the pattern, the Playtime Henley. So this one right here. And so I'm making this out of handspun, and I liked this pattern because it was very simple, and I thought it would be easy to incorporate all the details and all the color changes that I wanted to do. So the last time I showed this to you, I had gone up to, there's Mr. T running around like a horse. Told you, he is in a mood. So last time I showed it to you, I had gotten to where I finished the placket, and I was just knitting a bit below, and I was like, I'm going to do a few more rows and then starting to add the rainbows. Well, I did that. I got all the rainbows in, and these were about 10-gram minis that I spun, and I think I did a pretty good job spinning them consistently, because all the stripes ended up knitting in about 3 to 4 rows. So that's the rainbow stripes. And then I continued on with the ball that I was working from, and I just added below that as much as I could. So I'm at the end of that ball. So this right now is on some needles with some stoppers, and I have my remaining ball. So when I did my handspun, I only ended up with about 2 large size skeins, and this is the second one. So my plan now is to pick up the stitches for the sleeves and work down the sleeves long enough. I don't know if I'm going to do full sleeves, but maybe 3/4 length sleeves, because this is, you can see it looks quite wide. It is going to be kind of an oversized, comfy sweater. I don't want short sleeves, but I don't think I want full length sleeves. So I'm going to try and do the sleeves as long as I can with the amount of yarn that I have, because I want to be able to go back to the hem, and I want to be able to do a little bit of short rows on the back. I want the back to kind of dip down a little bit lower than the front, and then I'd like to edge it all with a I-cord bind off. That's what I'm thinking, because it is kind of just like this more casual looking oversized sweatshirty type style. I think I'd like the bottom of the sweater to be a little less structured. Like I don't want to do ribbing on the bottom, so I'm thinking a high-low hem and then an I-cord bind off just to kind of keep that kind of casual look. So that's what I want to do. That's my plan. But I don't know how long this is going to take me in terms of the sleeves. So I'm going to do the sleeves next, and then with whatever I have left, I'm going to put these, attach this, maybe do a round or two, start doing some short rows on the back, and then when it looks like I'm getting towards the end of the skein, I will start to do the I-cord bind off. But yeah, I will have used every single scrap of my hand spun, which is really, really cool, and I hope she likes wearing this. I usually don't care about these things. I don't know if I'm going to send her to school in this because this is not a washable yarn. And yeah, I just don't know. I don't know if I want to deal with that. I don't know if I want to deal with the paint and the glue and the glitter and the whatnots on my hand spun sweater. So this might be more of a weekend or after school or something like that. But that's my plan, and I'm really looking forward to that. I really like how it's turning out. It's working up really, really quickly, and that is one whole square on my bingo card. So once that's done, that's my box. That might be my first box. We'll have to see. If you are new and you have not heard of the Bling Your String Crafty Bingo Challenge, I encourage you to head over to the Bling Your String group. There is a thread there. It is a year-long challenge that you can join in on any time. All throughout the year, you can join anytime. Just post in the thread that you want to join. I will create a card for you, and you just fill it in with goals that you want to do, goals that work for you, the crafting that you do, the time that you have. They can be very simple. You can have each box being one specific project. You can have boxes where there's multiple projects. A lot of people will mix the two. I like to do a mix. But yeah, it's really fun and it's really motivating, and the thread is really active, and it's always nice to go in there and see what everybody's working on. Everybody's goals are completely different, so that's a really fun aspect to the challenge. And yeah, you just work on your card all year. In June, I have an opportunity set up so that you can change some things around if you've changed your mind on a few goals. But yeah, last year was the first year we did it, and it went really, really well. So if it sounds like something that you might be interested in, especially if you're doing the Make 9, this is a really easy way to break your Make 9 projects down into maybe some smaller chunks and incorporate those into the bingo card. So the next project that I have to share with you is one of my old UFOs. I think I showed this on the episode where I went through all my project bags and I was deciding what was going to get frogged and what was going to get finished, because I wanted to end the year with 5 or fewer old projects. That was one of the goals on my 2018 bingo card, and so I did that on one episode, and this was one of the projects. And I knew that I wanted to try and finish this because it wasn't going to get frogged. If I decided that I didn't want to finish this, basically the project was just going to get thrown out in the garbage, because I don't really have a use for this yarn in any other application. And also because it's stripes, there was just, I was not frogging stripes. So it was either finish it or throw it out. And it was at a place where I thought, you know, like, I'm going to try and finish it. So this is a sweater that I started for my brother back in 2013. I cannot believe how old this is. It has been sitting in a bag on my shelf since 2013. And I got quite a bit done that year. I got the whole body. It's a bottom-up sweater. So I got it cast on, I got the whole body done. There's like a kangaroo pocket here. I got that put in, and then I got all the way up to where you put the stitches on hold before casting on the sleeves. So you would do the sleeves next, and then you would join the sleeves and the body together and then work up the yoke. And usually I don't mind those types of patterns because I find the sleeves go very quickly when they're done separately. When I do a top-down sweater and I do sleeves, they seem to take forever. But if I do them separately for a bottom-up sweater, I find the sleeves go fairly quickly. The joining part is a little bit of a pain in the tuchus, but once you get through that, the yoke goes by so quickly. So I looked in my bag. I had the body done, and then this is the only thing I had done, and this is why it got put aside. I had this little wee start and there's just little bits and bobs everywhere. I had this little wee start to the first sleeve, and I got this far and then I put it down, and I know exactly why I put it down. I have learned that I cannot stand knitting stripes in the round. I don't like it. I don't like the process of crossing the yarns inside when it's in the round and you're working in the round and you have the two. I don't like it. So at this point, I stopped working on it. So this is all I had. Now, in the rest of the bag was all the yarn. There was a bit of a jumbled mess. I had to take some time the other night and just kind of sort it out, save what I could. I had to cut some stuff out because it was just all kind of jumbled. But I recast on the sleeve. So the yarns that I'm using for this, this is the first one. And I got this years and years and years and years and years ago from a shop in Toronto. This is the Galway Highland Heather's worsted weight. So this is non-superwash, and it's this really pretty olive heather. And then the other one that I'm using is this Barocco Ultra Alpaca. Again, it's kind of, well, no, it's a solid, but it's kind of got a fuzziness to it as well. Again, not washable. And that's why, like, if I decided I didn't want to finish this project, other than using this yarn to maybe make something that's felted, I know I wouldn't use this yarn. So I just figured, you know what, I might as well just try and finish it. So after I finished all that untangling and snipping and getting everything sorted, I cast on the sleeve again, but I cast it on flat. I have found that this is how I prefer to do striped sleeves instead of doing them around. I prefer to do stripes straight, like flat, and then seaming. I actually really enjoy seaming, and so this just works for me. I find it easier to twist the yarns together and carry them up the sides. I just find it easier to knit, and then I have no problem seaming it up at the end. So this is how much I got done in like maybe 2 evenings. This just shows you, this was like, how many years ago? Like 6 years ago, and I stopped at this point, and now like this was 2 evenings, and I think I'm pretty close to where I can put this sleeve aside and do the second sleeve. So I really don't think it's going to take very long to do the sleeves, and then it's just a matter of joining and doing the yoke. So the yoke is going to be in the darker color. Rereading this pattern, this shows you how old this project is. Inside the bag was a pattern printout. I never print out my patterns anymore. I always work on them from the computer or from a device of some sort. So I had to go through this pattern printout, figure out what I was doing, look at the measurements, figure out what size I was doing. I think I did put that in my project page, so that was lucky. But I'm actually not sure if this is going to end up going to the brother that I originally intended it for. I was going to make it for my middle brother for his birthday. So this is back when every year I would make each of my brothers a sweater throughout the year. I would usually aim for their birthdays because their birthdays are all spread out. One is in February, one is in June, and one is in November. I have since stopped. I think it was once I had Avery, that train stopped at the station. Like, I was not making sweaters for each of them every year. But so this was still at that time. Actually, it would have been a little bit after, because if this was 2013, she would have been about 2 years old. But I have not done it since. But I was looking at the measurements, and the smallest size is like a 35-inch or so. And all of my brothers at the time were very slim, so I'd always take the smallest size of a men's sweater and make it slightly smaller. And I was doing the same thing with this. I was working the smallest size, and I think I was working on smaller needles than the pattern stated to try and get a smaller size. But thinking now, my middle brother I don't think is the smallest of my 3 brothers, so I actually don't know if this would fit him. So what I've decided to do, I'm just going to finish the sweater. I think I might add a little bit of length to it. That's the one thing I find with bottom-up sweaters, is when you finish the body part and you're looking at this, I'm like, there's no way that this is long enough. Like, it never looks long enough, and I'm always tempted to add some length. And when I'm doing a sweater for Avery that way, I mean, extra length is not a problem, but when you're talking about like an adult man and you add length, if it's too long, it's not going to be flattering on them. So I'm tempted to just add maybe a stripe or 2 more. And then I'm just going to finish it. I'm going to bring it over when all my brothers are over at my mom's, and I'm just going to say, here you go, try it on. Whoever likes this, whoever it looks best on, whoever it fits best, whoever is willing to either hand wash it or gentle cycle in the washing machine, no dryer, whoever is willing to do that, it's yours. The other thing that I'm changing, I think, is it's a hoodie. And in reading the project pages, a lot of people did not like how the hood was written for this pattern. They said it looked odd, it didn't fit right, it was too shallow. So I'm thinking I am just going to omit the hood. I'm also a little bit concerned about the amount of yarn that I have. I only have these 2 balls of the green and then this for the brown and like a smidgen more. So I'm not really worried about the green, but because I'm doing the yoke and the brown, I'm a little concerned about the brown. So I'm not going to do the hood. And then the only other thing, when I was reading through the pattern again to reacquaint myself with it, I realized I was doing the striping pattern completely wrong. So it should actually be, right now I'm doing, it's 4 of the green and then 2 of the brown. It should actually be like 8. These should be doubled. But I don't mind this. I think this kind of proportion looks nice. So I'm just going to keep going with it. I'm not really worried about that. But it's just funny how, like, I was able to read it over once, and it was very obvious to me that that was the pattern. It's just the way it was written. It was kind of broken up. But then back then, I totally didn't read it that way. It's interesting to see how your kind of skills grow over the time. But yeah, so that is the project that I have dug out from the depths, and I do plan on finishing it. I do think I will, and if I do, it will work towards one of my bingo squares, which is to complete 5 adult garments. And actually, I think I have another square that is complete 2 old, like old languishing projects, so it will work towards both of those, which is awesome. So the only other thing, so I don't have a collection this week because I did that last week. So this week is a question and chat episode, and I do have a little something to chat about with you, and hopefully we can have a nice, interesting discussion. But before I get to that, I have a project update. So I thought this might be something neat to do every once in a while when it is relevant. I think I've mentioned that I very rarely knit for myself, and I find even when I do make myself things, I don't tend to use them. There's a lot of things I've made for myself that are just sitting in the closet or sitting in a drawer. I mostly gift knit. That's where I get my pleasure. That's what I enjoy. I am more of a process knitter. I just want to knit the thing, enjoy the process, and then give it away. So I very, very rarely use my own knitwear. This week, I have been using something that I made myself last year back in April. I have been using the heck out of this thing this year, and so I thought I would do a little project update just to let you know how it's going and like what I like about this project. And it might be something, especially since we're in that season, or a lot of us are in that season right now, it might be something to consider. So this here is the secondary cowl, and this is by Stephanie Lotvin. She's one of my favorite designers, and I made this back in April, and this was partly a stash busting project. This is a super thick knit, and what I did is I held 2 skeins of a worsted weight plus a double knit sock blank. So essentially it would be like 3 worsted weight strands together, and to make this. So it's knit this way. You knit straight, and you can see how the colors are changing. That's from the sock blank that I used. It was kind of a color shifting gradient sock blank. So you knit it this way, and then you seam it. I have been wearing this so much this week because this past week has been frigid, absolutely frigid. It has been negative 20 degrees on the daily, sometimes feeling like, you know how they say, oh, it's negative whatever, but feels like this with like the wind chill. It's been going to negative 30 with the wind chill, or like feeling like, or the air, whatever. And so when I've been going out to wait with Avery for the bus, or when she comes home and I have to go out, I have been popping this thing on. And it has been surprisingly warm. So one of the things I really like about this is that there's 2 main ways that you can wear it. So the first one is, if you just want something kind of up and around your neck, I really like how under a coat, this cable is really showcased. So it's really up against your neck. It's really thick, and then you've got this beautiful cable kind of going across as like a showpiece. But on the days where you're just standing out in the wind and you don't care what you look like, this is the other way I wear it. I just turtled myself up into this, and I have my coat on, and I just burrow, and it is glorious. So I don't have any lining in this, and yet I don't feel the wind through it, and I can tuck it right up to my little eyes, and I just wait for her to come home, and it is wonderful. The bus driver has even commented. She's like, oh, that looks warm. I'm like, yes, it is. So I have thoroughly been enjoying this project. So yeah, I just wanted to share that project with you. If you are also stash busting this year, it is an excellent stash buster. It's also a really great gift because it knits up so quickly. And then talking about stash, so that's what we are going to have our little question and chat about. So I want to have a little chat, and hopefully we can have a nice little discussion. What I want to talk about this week is stashing. Yeah, just the act of stashing, our stashes, you know, how we view our stash, how our stash maybe makes us feel. I just think this is a very interesting topic. You may know, if you've been watching for a while, that last year I did a stash challenge. So I wanted to focus on using my stash more, and so I gave myself some very set amount of rules for purchasing yarn throughout the year. So I was able to buy a project worth, and then also an impulse gain at any show I attended. I was able to make a birthday purchase. I was able to have at least, I was able to purchase one mystery item a month, so either a mystery box or like a club skein that you didn't know. I really liked mystery boxes, so I allowed that. I didn't take advantage of that. I only got a few last year. And then there might have been one other thing. Oh, I think if I had to order anything from the Desert Vista Dyeworks challenge, so if I earned a coupon through my participation, I could use that coupon towards a purchase, and that would not count against the stash challenge. So in doing that last year, I was just amazed with how it affected my overall, just how I saw buying yarn. So I remember at the beginning of last year, there was a lot of times where I really felt like I was missing out. I was like, oh, I would really like that. You know, someone would post something on Instagram. I'd be like, oh my God, that's beautiful. I'd love to order that, but I can't. It doesn't fit into my rules. And the more and more months passed, the more that didn't bother me anymore. And looking back, there's maybe only one or two things that I still think about. I think there's only one thing. So when Countess Ablaze did her her charity skein, I really wanted that. Those were my colors. That's the only thing of all the things I saw last year that I still feel like I wish I could have gotten. But everything else, like half of them, I can't even tell you what they were. I don't miss them. Obviously, I didn't need them. So going into 2019, I wanted to keep that going. I can buy yarn now. Like January 1st, I was sitting there and I was like, oh, it's January 1st. I can totally go online and buy yarn. But I don't want to. It kind of totally just killed that impulsive urge, and I really like that. I will be buying yarn this year, but it's going to be more focused. So I still really want to use my stash. One of the goals on my bingo card this year is to condense my stash. I've mentioned before that I have most of my stash up here in this room, and then I have one or two large bins downstairs, my deep dark basement stash, which is a lot of like acrylic yarns or leftover bits that I don't know what to do with, or other things that I don't want to really give away because I do find I go down there for certain things. But it's just not stuff that when I look at, it brings me joy. Like some of the skeins back here, I enjoy having around me. So most of my stash is upstairs. And I might insert some pictures because I recently rearranged the yarn that I have back here. And at the end of this year, what I'd really like is that most of my skeined yarn, so the yarn, the pretty indie dyed yarn, or sweater quantities and that kind of stuff that's in skeins that really brings me joy, is in this unit back here. And then I also have a built-in shelf over there that used to be filled with yarn. Last year it was all yarn, Now one shelf is completely yarn free, and then I have some other bins that are like project bags and things. I would like that unit to have no yarn in it, and so that I can use it for storage of shipping materials and other office supplies and, you know, tools and maybe some of my spinning stuff. I would like that to be yarn free, so that's what I'm going to be working on using my stash this year. And then I have another little cube unit over there that is one of those things where you can put like square baskets in. I would like that to end up being just leftovers, so like fingering scrap leftovers, DK weight scraps, worsted weight scraps, you know, like all those little bits and pieces that I don't need out visible, but I still use, like my minis and stuff like that, I would like over there. So I really want to work this year on using my stash, making projects with my stash, so that I can make each part of this room function the way I want it to. And so yeah, I am going to be mainly continuing to work with stash. The only time I am going to be buying yarn this year is if there's a project that I really want to make and no other project, like no other pattern will do, you know, finding another pattern to work with what I have, that won't do, and I absolutely do not have the yarn that will work for that project or that I can make work, because sometimes I will over dye yarn to make it work, or I will put multiple strands together to make it work. If I have absolutely nothing in my stash that will work for this pattern that I absolutely need to make, nothing else will work, I will buy yarn for that project. Maybe the odd charity skein, because last year I think there was that Countess Ablaze one. They might do that again this year, and I think Lolo Did It had one that I really liked too, the Helping Hippo skein. So if something like that pops up, I might do that as well. But other than that, I am just really content right now working with my stash. So the question that I wanted to have for you that we can chat about, I would love to know, where is your stash right now? Like, not just physically, but like in your mentally, where is your stash to you? Like, are you happy with the amount of stash you have? I know a lot of people have been talking about doing a no-buy this year and just focusing on what they have. Is that where you are? Are you, maybe you just started knitting and you have a very small amount of yarn and you are perfectly happy to be adding to that this year. So I want to know, like, where do you fall when we're thinking about stash and stuff like that? Like, do you have yours out? Do you like having it out? Do you have it all tucked away in bins? Just, yeah, let me know. I would love to know. And then also, I've decided that I'm going to be extending that kind of mentality to other aspects of the household as well. I found, even though last year I really reduced the amount of yarn I was buying, those impulses to buy things to bring joy translated to other things. And a lot of those things, it's because you get, there's a certain effect in your brain, and it's that, you know, that impulse of buying, and then when you get it, and then once that feeling kind of wears off, you feel like you want to buy something else, right? So I kind of just want to nip it in the bud with everything. And so this year I'm just really focusing on what I have household wide, and unless I use up something, I'm not going to be going out and purchasing. So like, just with, you know, bath items, like I would buy, like if I bought a new shampoo and I was just like, oh, I really don't like this, it's not working for me, or I've just fallen out of love with it, I'd go buy a new shampoo, even though I still had plenty of that old shampoo left. So just stuff like that. Until I have absolutely no shampoo in the house, I'm not buying a new shampoo. Same thing with my coffees and teas. I really, really enjoy trying new flavors, and I would place more orders because I wanted to try some other flavors when I still had some in my cupboard. So yeah, unless I really use those up, I will not be placing more orders for that. And I'm just going to do that household wide. The only thing that that kind of thought process will not apply to is necessities like food, replacements if something breaks or whatnot. Things for Avery if she needs them. But I'm just, yeah, I kind of just want to extend this more minimal feeling to everything in the house. Like, I also kind of want to declutter stuff. Like, it's just that whole, I've heard this said before, but like, just valuing your space more than your stuff. And that's kind of where I am going into this year. I just want more space. I want things to be more organized. I just want less clutter, and that's where I'm starting. So yeah, so let me know below. We can have a little discussion, like where are your thoughts on this? You know, it can just be in terms of your crafting, but also if there's other avenues of life that falls into this and you want to discuss that too, that's cool too. So let me know below. Again, any comment on any of my videos goes towards a draw for a gift certificate at the end of the month. But yeah, I'd love to have a little chat. So that is it for this week. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you have a fabulous weekend, and if you are also living somewhere where it is very, very, very cold, I hope you stay very, very, very warm. Yeah, stay inside and knit. That's what I plan on doing. So I will see you next week.